Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Wednesday, June for crap's sake, is it the 26th or the 27th?
26th.
Oh, it's the 26th. Okay, good. Well, I didn't say that date at all today, so that's part of the issue. And I'm really glad BZ and I are going to get to play with, you actually did a quantum porch sitting earlier today about this, your journey from dark to light. And I said to you, yeah, well, I'm still quite a bit in the dark, but and I also said to you that I loved that porch sitting, uh, and I said to myself, because I always hear, because those that follow this channel, also a lot of them follow Q, and there's been a lot made of dark to light. And I'm still very amazed at how many folks don't get all these metaphors that are showing up everywhere. And so I'm really, there's been a lot of dark to light in just the last 24 hours or so for me in Expansionville, I guess you can almost call it, but for lack of a better word, I don't know. I was sharing with you that I saw the conversation between Todd Medina and Magenta Pixie, and that was very dark to light conversation for me. You spoke of in your porch sitting about, and I see this in so many different ways now too. That snippet of the English language from dark to light. It can mean so many different things, and it does mean very many different things.
And they're all connected.
Yes, they are. That's why I said, and I'm amazed at how many folks don't see that. But okay, I get it. We're all at different places with this.
And you say, metaphor. Well, yes, it's metaphor, but it's also actual, tangible, like steps or trajectories or tapestries where the string starts here and you keep pulling it and it weaves. It's all of those things all at the same time.
Yes. Well, and I guess that's what I mean. I'm feeling very much like partly almost like, when one is walking around in the dark and then you walk a certain way or something and you're walking towards the light. There's with every puzzle piece that I gather that all of a sudden makes sense, or I grok it that much more, I view that as a step from darkness, or one might even call it ignorance in some ways, or that's not the right word, but there was something I wasn't quite clear on, and now I'm a little more clear. So it's a lot lighter. It's a lot more clear, so
it's what comes to mind is when they talk about the number of candles in a wattage, or lumieres, right? So if you whether it's doing with exposures with a camera or video, or your own light, the way in your eyes that it registers light, but as you go up another lumiere worth of light indices, right? Not because light has many different bandwidths, right, and ranges. So as you go up another lumiere, you're going another full circle bandwidth of range. And that illuminates not only, okay, it was pitch dark and now there's a little smidge of very darkest gray, we'll say, if use that. But it's also because it's all connected, like we're talking about. So this is we're in this moment. What we're describing is something that is spiritual, energetic, physiological, scientific. Of course, science can prove all of these things, but so that you can look at it on all the different ranges, depending on, and that's what we're talking about, dark to light, depending on what your perception and perspective are of things, and what at the moment you can and have chosen to allow yourself to be able to see. Because that's another level and layer of it.
Yes. Yes, it is. And the propensity to label things in specific ways, because what is dark, right? I mean, there's a lot made, especially in the spiritual community, about what is dark and what is light. And the language really fails for this for me.
Well, in colors, if you're painting and stuff, black is not the absence of color; it is all colors included.
Right, and that's what.
The whole enchilada,
Thank you for that, because that's exactly what I mean. It's when. And it depends on whether or not you know that, right? Okay, so that's what I mean when I'm saying that. For me, dark can also mean some ignorance as well. Is what I'm saying. It's
because light is knowledge. I mean, that is knowing. It's information. It's illumination. Again, depending on how all of these fit as descriptors and navigators to what we're talking about, depending on how you hold things, how you allow yourself to hold things, because those are two different things.
Yeah.
And the frequency that you carry, because again, frequency is a vibrational, it has different channels within it that, you have light frequencies, and your bandwidths of that allow you to have a range from which you can perceptually differentiate so that you can see all of those. So if you talk about dark, when it's dark or black, right? Or you could say it's the absence of light. So in other ways, it's the absence of clarity for a point of refracting and differentiation of the streams of light and information that let you see the totality of what it is. Just, like a black hole is not this nothingness void that's it. So it's fascinating to me that at this time, things have sped up so much. So we were talking about this before off camera, that they're, by design, there is no time to put the pillow over your head, or let me try it, or I'll, it's all now. And because that's why this is your journey from dark to light. Because we all are in various stages and traveling on our journey of dark to light. Because we all went out to the furthest reaches, right? And then the mission to source, going out to know a source, right? And went to the darkest extremes of, you could say the galaxies, you could say all sorts of things. You know, you could say to the depths of density and what's the word I'm looking for? Paradox. You could say the depths of polarities, right?
Yeah.
And right now, everything is, you know, is being shown. There's so many. When I did that video earlier today, you know, I wanted to just give a touching on it because there's so many different ways and different examples that are pointing right now on the whole concept or labeling or idea to play with of moving from dark to light. And make no mistake, we're all doing that.
Yeah, in every moment too, by the way. That's the way I feel. And it's not it's there's not what I'm feeling, especially lately, is that it's not a straight line.
No.
It's not a straight line either. There's a whole bunch of this going on.
Yeah, and what we're all being shown, whether we recognize it or not, is that if you think of a movie theater, right, and the projector screen, so the light goes on the projector, and it can then take through the way that the light transmits through. I'm talking about an old time, you know, film, right, and it's projecting. The light is projecting the information that's on the film. So we are each the projector and the light shining the information on our own screen, and we're the film. So we're all of those things. So there's another example of we're all one and we're all singular. We're the only projector in the only movie theater in the entire multiverse. So we're all one, and we're all you know, you've got a multiplex cinema. Okay, well, you got to come up with a new name and new developers because it's in, you know, in every quadrant, in every galaxy, in every multiverse of the mega theaters. And each time we look at something, encounter something, even just within ourselves, we don't have to go anywhere or turn anything on or talk to anybody else. We can see different parts of our own story and look at it. So what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. So people are looking at the big topic right now around the whole planet is the whole Google thing with Veritas. And the squashing of trying to actually go back to dark, you know, to cover more darkness, to remove information, remove light, all that kind of stuff. And so YouTube pulls videos and this, that, and the other thing. And a number of beings, so one question that people can look at is, if not every single being on the planet is having alarm bells going off in the amount of dark to light and looking this going, okay, this is serious. You know, in our linear worlds and freedom and sovereignty and all this kind of stuff, there should be a whole lot of it, whether you love Trump or you hate Trump. This ain't nothing to do with Trump. This has to do with every single being of any configuration on the planet. And so again, that's moving your journey from dark to light, because if you're not seeing that and feeling that and going, wait a minute, that regardless of what your perspective is, then you're in the journey more in the, you know, if we're moving in linear ways, so dark to light, then you're more in the dark part, because you're not allowing your awareness to have enough frequency bandwidth of informational, which is light, to show you, to let you feel, to see the calibration on a frequency bandwidth of the constriction that is occurring. It's been occurring, but now it's being brought to light. So it's kind of a circular or toroidal thing that keeps opening up.
Well, no, you're right. I'm in agreement with you on that. And what I feel, I haven't, since that story really broke, I haven't been out, anywhere to speak to anyone that didn't already know all that kind of stuff, but, I feel like it's more of that, there are just those that just hadn't seen it before, right? There, for a lot of us, that's like, oh, well, that's kind of old news. We've been knowing this, but there are a lot of folks out there that don't, and so I feel like in that particular instance, it's one of those things we've talked a lot about, how some will be dragged kicking and screaming into knowledge of what the hell is really going on around up in here. And so I feel like that's another one of those type of things. This is what's really going on there.
Yeah, and that because, and again, it's another metaphor for the dark to light. The light is streaming and infusing, suffusing, and spotlighting on everything within each of us, on all of our bodies, everything in our collectives that we create, on different levels, into everything. And it's marching right along, streaming right along. It's, someone hit, the button, and all of those big spotlights on an old time, movie lot, which usually would be a couple acres worth, go up, and you have 50 to 100 of them go, and the Lumieres, when those suckers go off, it's like you can't see anything from them because it's so, your ocular nerves are going, whoa. And that's actually what's happening. And the only reason that it isn't like this to everyone wholesale is because of the amount of allowing that they've already been doing, which has adjusted their linear and quantum and multidimensional, ocular, on all levels of what you would be being able to see, from sensing, third eye, two eyes, however it works, in your particular species beingness. You've already seen it. So it's not quite so bright. As you said, some people already know about it. But again, it's uncovering more things, because based on how each of us individually are processing the information and the streams of light that are coming out, right? If we're not allowing ourselves to click into wider and wider and wider and wider apertures, then we can see there are portions of our beams of reading things that are blocking that light by choice.
Well, I also, this is bringing up for me a very important part that I have felt for some time in regards to why, because a lot of folks I've seen a lot of different comments here and there in different groups about how it seems like, some folks are now waking up, right? So I want to say that is, for me, what I feel in regards to that is direct proportion to those who have been making these movements from dark to light, within themselves. It's sort of a template setting sort of thing. The more well, to use your terminology from before, conversations we've had before, the more I unbind and unwind these things within me, that's a template that's been set for others. This is not, because we really are all one and yet singular. Each one that does this unbinding and unwinding, that allows that much more light in to their specific being, makes it available for everyone else and a little easier for that journey to take place.
Yes.
And all of what this has been going on, and I know that we have folks that follow this channel, that do follow Q, like I said before, that don't think that it has anything to do with spirituality past the God. But everybody better just hold up it.
Well, that's another example of one of those dark to light. So when you have that, if you're reading past posts of Q, because Q hasn't published in a long time, and actually you've been told when the next date the publishing will come if you're looking at that, but it's always been about that. I mean, it's so illuminated the quantum multidimensional nature of what that is, hence the Q for quantum. But that's just that's just an obvious thing, in there, and all of the different things that have come out about, where we go one, we go all one, separate, all on this together, trust the plan, all of these kinds of things. Yes, you can, depending on the dark to light and the gradations and lumières that you have allowed yourself to turn on, you could say, oh, okay, well, the badass dudes, they're saving us from, they're telling us about the badass dudes, they're saving us from the badass dudes, and we're going to yay, 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 cheer and watch them do it. No, doesn't work that way. Because we're each of the, again, to talk about lighting, and so we are each of the candle, I'm not saying it right, but the candle strengths of the light. So as each candle, each one of us goes and strikes that match, and we light ourselves up, hence light bodies, hence shining light, hence like, hello, right? Then we add more candles, more lumières to the picture, to uncovering, discovering, illuminating, right? And bringing that all out into the open. Sunshine is the best disinfectant. Well, what do you think the sun is doing up there right this moment? Talk about candle strength and lumières and the whole frequency bandwidth. So nothing is not connected. All of this is connected. It's all intricately, intimately, beautifully, sublimely infused and interwoven into this tapestry of the old coming down and the new coming forth. And it is linear, absolutely, positively, yay. And it is quantum. And it is multidimensional. And it is spiritual. And it is scientific. And it is political. It's all of that, because they're all woven, because that's all part of the false construct meets the reveal. The false construct gets torn down, and the reveal reveals, and then in a flash of insight, right? Hence dark to light. We not only see what was, what is, what we are all at the same time, and we build everything else, because we're building the new as we're tearing down the old. And everybody is doing it. It's not just Q and we'll wait for him. It's not just Trump. They can't do, that's the other thing. I don't think people have allowed themselves to move from dark to light, to shine their own spotlight on. That each person, each being is essential, absolutely, positively essential for this to unfold, and for this to have traveled where it is at this candle strength and the number of luminaires right this moment. And have you noticed? It's like the spotlights keep going on and on and on and on.
Yeah, no, I know. That's why I've thought about this a lot. In that, you know, all of us, myself included, to a degree, until most recently. I mean, it's one thing to have these conversations and to hear you say that, the unbinding and unwinding, but now it's a feeling, and it is a knowing, and I can see so very clearly that every single thing, all the questions that have been presented, in the manner in which the whole Q thing started, was so designed by source. You mentioned that Q stands for quantum. Well, it's also the highest. I also thought this was ingenious too. It's the highest security clearance for the Department of Energy. Also, I don't think that's any kind of an accident. And I so clearly see how there's, and it's not, this is not a saying that, folks are behind or anything. I think everybody is right where they planned to be. There is no, I've had a lot come in over the last week for me in regards to how much and how intricate the planning went into this point in time right now, in the linear sense.
Yes. And we're way ahead of, to use inaccurate linear terms, we're way ahead of schedule. We're way ahead of the amount of luminaires that possibly were thought that could be turned on, lit up, broadcasted out. And the juxtaposition, I'm not sure this is quite accurate, but this is how it's going to come out. The juxtaposition and the byplay off of the different candle strengths of each being as they transmit and project out, right? And bring in the information to themselves as well, is an intricate dance as well. So you might say, well, God, those people are like, I don't know, the lights not only not on, but and there's nobody home, but when are they waking up? But they have certain, just to use these descriptors, certain candle strength that they have. And the juxtaposition of that to other more candle strength, someone with more luminaires that is looking and actively, or the light just went on, however you want to, say this. The differential and the shadows and reflections and refractions that the differential between those cast is adding actually to the light information picture, because more questions, more observations, more answers, more differing paths can then be illuminated, maybe dimly illuminated, but they're illuminated. And that is adding to the wake up picture. So in other words, that person that you're thinking is just a stupid oaf and hasn't woken up yet, in whatever stage they are at, that is the right for them the way they've chosen. But not only that, it itself is adding to and essential to all that's going on. And the different bursts of light that then come out may not be chosen by that particular person, but it has an effect, a transmitting effect that stokes the Lumieres and a whole bunch of other beings by what it's refracting. Does that make sense?
Yes, and for some reason this just came in too. Yes, and because it's always an and with me apparently. So there's that yes, and the lack of, or however it was set up by that being to experience. This feels important. May just be the catalyst for something else that no one else, none of us are aware of, but was essentially set up in the way that it was to do something specific. This is such a, what I now feel what we've got going on here is so intricate is not even the right word, because of the multi-layered, multi-density, multi-realm, multi-dimensional, interdimensional, all the different things that we really truly are. Because again, I don't think there's a lot even for me when I start thinking about the fact, I mean, really feeling into we are one and yet singular. That's that. I don't think I really didn't talk about dark to light. I've heard that. I've always heard that we are all one. But when you sit and really feel into that, and then know that it's not just what I can see in front of me here, or that you're over there. It's the big everything. It's the everything, everywhere, I'm sorry. I'm seeing George Carlin and his everything.
Well, and it goes beyond, again, the amount of light that someone may allow to come in so that they can visually in their, all of their senses acuity come in is everything. Well, everything, but everything in the scope of everything that ever was, is, will be, has been, will ever be thought of to be, and then some, and so on and so forth. So the totality of all in infinity times infinity.
Yes, and I was just sitting here thinking to myself, yes, and I'm also those two pictures right behind you over there, and I'm that vase, so those flowers, and I know I can hear it, because the minute I started thinking about that, there was another little side of me that was like, oh my God, those people are so crazy. They are so woo-woo. But that, and that would have been something I might have said or felt or thought of in the past. But again, for me, that's a sign of the dark to the light, because
absolutely,
I know that is true now.
Right. And the dark, so again, the dark to light, it's an inside job. So the dark to light starts within us all the time. In each moment, it shifts and changes. And as we illuminate and turning on, that's why we're turning on, some call it their light bodies, you're turning on all of that, but you're turning on the light. And you are actually now can see everything that was the dark, can all be illuminated. And you can see the totality, the exquisite and sublime, delicious complexity of all that it is. You mentioned a moment ago about, some people who take someone who might be in the dark, and that they're being a catalyst for, the light shining, and either themselves or others being able to expand the candle strength, right, that they've got to then bring in all that information. Well, you got an excellent one right this moment. Janae, I can't think of her last name, but the Google executive. Okay. So on the one hand, that's a good example of someone being in the dark. Now, they can intentionally be in the dark. They can intentionally pass everything else out, or they could have been in the culture of the company where they thought it was one thing that they were doing, and come to find out it was something. There have been some people who brought some evidence to light that that's the case. Whatever. But talk about being a catalyst. I can guarantee you, when she went out for that cup of coffee or whatever she was having, didn't think that many Lumieres were going to be, talk about the movie set and the spotlights being turned on. And again, that shows you, this is inaccurate, but to use a linear, the steamroller that is just steamrolling and hitting every spotlight everywhere on, will not be thwarted, because this is what is happening. And yes, we all have a choice in how we do it and how we move through it. Absolutely, positively. And it's your choice. Stick to it, whatever you choose. That's great. And this is what's happening. So, you have all these things, and the big, and again, when we talk about the thems and the outside, and I'm small and I can't do anything. Okay, well, we're talking just starting with one being, who was doing this. The one sitting at the coffee table with the camera in their pocket. Or another one, there's lots of ones, but another one who, was pulling documents outside. Another one who came, although shielded a bit, on camera, right? Or another one who, hey, started Project Veritas. Or, so you can keep, there's our bazillions of another ones, but every time it's back to it only takes one. And then you have, and it works the same way with those who you might describe as turning on the lights, right? And those who are trying to keep the darkness shrouded. So we talked about the Jen woman, and then you've got YouTube said, well, we're just going to kick that thing right off the thing. And then Vimeo and all, well, okay, but how many Lumieres have they illuminated that particular thing with? And now you've got it on the Hill, right, in DC, and these, and what is a sublime, delicious? If you were a bookie, would you take odds, that all of this would unfold when Congress just happened to be having, right, Google up there anyways at these hearings? So the magnitude and the precision and the absolute gobsmackingly deliciousness that everything is connected and everything is in this grand multiverse symphony, and every note is so valued and loved and important, whether it's a sharp or a flat or a melody or just a divergent chord or something. It's all integral and needed for what's occurring in our individual journeys of dark to light and in our collective journeys.
Yeah, I think that's why, well, I don't know that if that's why, but your statement in regards to, uh, everyone is needed. I agree with that. And I want to say that, everyone that feels to do something, to do it. If you feel to do it, do it. If you don't feel to do it, be okay with that. It's not, you know what I'm saying? There's, and, and if it fluctuates, because as it will, at least it has for me, um, be okay with that too. Um, because this is big stuff. For one thing, I feel like, for me anyway, I'll just speak for myself. It is big stuff. It's exciting stuff. It's heady stuff, especially when, um, one starts being able to feel themselves moving in several realms at once.
Mm-hmm.
It it can be a little. It can be, uh, dizzying, to say the least. But being okay with whatever presents, and if you feel okay with it. Now, if you don't feel okay with it, then that's something within. Again, something, because there's been things that have presented for me and I don't feel all that great about, but I just take my time with it, um, and not being so hard on myself, and I'm finding that even in those moments, there's there's um there's candle power there as well.
Yes.
It may not feel like it in that moment, because I'm kind of wandering around in the dark looking for the candle. Wait a minute. It's the way it feels at the time, but it has its own candle power as well. So, uh,
Yeah, and part of what you're talking about too is part of that is that choice of am I being am I the I don't normally separate them out, but maybe as an example it might be helpful. Am I the one in the shirt in the chair? Am I being involved and engaged and directing and working with all of me at the behest of me? And so if the answer is in that moment I don't feel like doing anything, and that is a conscious choice and a full-throated, wholehearted choice, then the answer of what that question I just asked is yes, because it's conscious, because you feel it, because you are actually moving and doing that. You just happen to be doing no thing at this moment. It's a coalescing, you could describe it as. It's a gathering. It's you could describe it in lots of different ways, but it's actually not nothing.
well, but I want to point out something that feels very important, that in what you said there. It was conscious.
Yes.
For me, that's a big part of this dark to light thing.
Yes.
I am becoming more conscious. And I know a lot of folks will say, well, if you're awake, you're conscious. No, no. Let me just say, no. I'm 58 years old. I've been awake a lot, but not really.
Right.
And with every passing moment, honestly, I can see how in the dark I have been, and how unconscious I have been, and to some degree still am.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, for me, whenever you talk about the dark to light, I always see it as becoming more conscious. Um, And the widening of that aperture is perfect metaphor for that for me, because it lets more light in. I can see from a higher vantage point. A wider aperture allows
More information to come in.
right, and different angles, and to see, oh well, wait a minute, you know what, I never considered it in that kind of a fashion. Hold up a second.
Right. And if you're going to take it to, the actual print, the image, think of the wider the aperture gives you more pixels, so that you have that much information. If you just picked one of those pixels, right? And all the information in that one, all the color, all the frequency, all the richness, all the vibrational signatures is different in just that one pixel. Then you put them all together. You said something a minute ago about, I wanted to add to, when I talked about the nothing, some about, whatever you're choosing to do at that moment. And so a bunch of people said, well, I'm not sure what to do. If someone, I wish someone would tell me the best thing to do. You said, if you feel moved to do it. So again, that's a good example of moving from dark to light, because in the dark, we wait to be told. In the dark, we've been told to be told, and then you do it, because that's how you get along, right? That's how you go along to get along. And so when you're if that reaction comes up and you go, well, I wish I knew what to do, or I'm too small, or whatever, because those are similar kinds of veins. Or I want to do something, I really want to help, I want to feel like I'm doing something, but I don't know what to do. If someone, should I do this, right, is sometimes it happens. Or, gosh, I wish someone would give a list of things we could do, or whatever it is. So that's a really good place that you can play with the dark to light. So if you looked at it for a moment and go, well, when you have that reaction, that would be more in the dark. So it's the absence of light, the absence of information, and this is your own self-directed information. And you look at it and go, So you can use different techniques. Well, if I knew what to do, or if I knew what was the best thing to do, what pops into my head, right? Or what do I feel moved to do? So again, all of that is turning on the light, turning up the luminaires, because first of all, where are you shining your spotlight? When you're asking those questions, you're turning it back in here. And in here is every candle with strength, every luminaire that has ever been created, every will be created, ever, so on and so forth, that we talked about in the totality of all of it. And so again, that's another level and layer of the dark to light. And that's another example of how everyone is vital to what's going on, because someone has that thought, plays with it a little bit more, and goes, let me do this dark to light thing. Let me see, oh, wow, and the light, why do you think we have the euphemism of the light bulb went off? And that's how we're all vital to what's going on.
Well, something came in for me when you were speaking there, in regards to, like if someone says, well, I wish someone would tell us, tell me what to do, or what would be good to do, or whatever. And I resemble that remark, or I did resemble that remark. As a matter of fact, a lot of the conversations with you and Lisa were very much that, what do I do? How do I get there? What do I need to do? Okay, so, but what I now feel strongly, because now it's for me, it's another one of those dark to light things, I guess, is that there is no sovereignty in being told what to do. I listen, I get it because I didn't get it, and I didn't understand it, and I wanted to understand it. but through all of these conversations and having the internal conversations, the constant, because I talk with you guys, but if you think I talk with y'all a lot, well, let me just assure you there's a whole lot of conversation going on up on her. So and I highly recommend that to everyone, because this, along with what's going on, and I feel like this whole thing with Q has been very much that same energetic, in that the sovereignty that by the asking of the questions, you're not being given the answers. You have to go out and find them for yourself.
Right, it's an inside job.
That's right. And that's why I said, for me, everything that's been happening with Q is a perfect metaphor for everything that's been happening with me, in that I ask myself questions, I get this answer, or I get led to look over here, or have this conversation, or look into that, and then I'll get a snippet of other, like a song or something else, and it'll come, and it's all very, very much an inside job.
Yes, because who's leading you to look over there?
That would be me.
Funny how that works.
Right. And so that's why I'm saying that I wanted to say it, because yes, I recognize what you were saying there, because that was me, and still sometimes is me. I'll ask the questions sometimes even out loud, of myself, the universe, anybody, it doesn't matter. But it's all data, and it will all show I might not grok it right as soon as I see it the first time around or something, but I don't give up, first of all, and I don't think any of us really do. And so for me, I always keep coming back to just being open, for one thing, being open and questioning ourselves, and being allowing that, all of that data to come in, is very, very helpful. But I wanted to show that whole thing about asking, don't not ask the question. I mean, for goodness sakes, absolutely. But I used to, I see it now as a sovereignty issue as well, because that's part of the energetic that is here, is because that's what's up, part of what's up.
Well, we're the only ones who can flick the light switch on. So by asking, what do I do, you keep flicking the light switch off, in essence, And again, it's another beautiful example in the complexity of it, of, so we each are all one and singular. So we're the totality of the dark. And then as we work through our process, however we've designed it to be, and then because we, not only have we designed it, but we're multidimensional. So we actually have designed it, and what it is, what it was, what it will be, what it's morphed to, what it's expanded to, what it's constricted to, all at the same time. And it's in that moment we choose it. So we are, the one, all of that, one being all inclusive of all of that. And we can then be each aspect of the individual things, and we move ourselves along the journey.
I had to laugh, because when you said that, you keep turning the light switch off, I also know from my own experience that even when you ask the question, even if somebody gives it to gives you the answer. Sometimes you're like, no, that's not the right answer. You click the light and switch off. I've done that. I have done that. So, there's that to consider too, because it's all an inside job and it's all going to happen in the way in which each one of us has set it up for ourselves to experience and not a moment before.
Right. And someone just mentioned, well, they asked, I mentioned how, this is what's happening and we all choose how, we're going to play in it. And the question was, well, given that, this isn't quite accurate, but what's next, or as we're each choosing that because it's happening anyways, what unfolds next? And my response to that would be, that's when the fun really begins. That's when the excitement really begins. And that's the next, conversation after this that's related to this. That's where the new tools, something that you and I were talking about off camera, that the new tools and the new superpowers and the new trainings, and they've already all started for everyone. It's just recognizing it and having an awareness and not brushing it off, but of that accelerated pace of transformation, of your ascension process, of evolution for all that's going on, and the dematerializing of all that was before. We're in that phase now, and we are beyond. Amplification is not an encompassing enough term to depict how the steps, speed, breadth, and depth at which each one of us, even if we think that we're just over here in the dark and not moving to the light, not sure what the hell to do or how to do it, even in all of that, if that's where you're feeling right at the moment, the speed at which you are amplifying for yourself, the amount of candle strength that you can emit and put out and pull in for yourself is enormous. And it's speeding up by the nanosecond isn't even enough, small enough measuring.
Yeah, and for some reason this came in during what you said just then, and that is that, let's take someone who feels like they're in the dark and doesn't know. Again, because it's all at the rates at which we've all set up for ourselves. There's also a huge possibility that, because I don't know why this came in, so this is either answering someone's question out there or something, but the tools that you just spoke of, they are what I'm feeling and what I'm sensing is that they are bubbling just beneath the surface in all of us in various different ways. And not that any one of us, myself included, would absolutely be able to point the finger and say, oh, that's a new tool that is just now starting to
Look at that screwdriver's coming out of my arm. Wow.
Yeah, see, that's that. So, and yet, I have the very real sense that is happening across the board with everyone, including, and maybe even most specifically, in those who are what some might even classify as still in the dark, still asleep, whatever, because there are there's so there because we are multidimensional and multi-layered and set up in different ways and different, you know, things that we are doing that we're not even aware we're doing. On this level, you know, what I call the right up front here in the forefront of my head level, the little me in the chair may not realize it, but there are things that other portions or other aspects of me are still in the midst of finishing or polishing up or getting ready, that haven't fully come online yet or whatever. So the perfection of how all of it's going down is not to just be blithely, you know, oh well, sure, okay, overlooked there. I feel that's why, you know, again, I finally get the whole perfect and perfectly done thing
Right.
that
So
Heather.
let me just give an example that popped in, and again is with this Janae woman. I'd probably look for her name and pronounce it right, but so I've heard a number of people say, well, how can she be that oblivious, or how can she be that she's dark, she's evil, look at what, you know. So again, dark to light. Here's a being who's come in and who's chosen different things and how to wake up and how to do things, just as an example. And she's planned all of this before she came in this embodiment. And she chose to do specific roles and specific missions. And you're seeing one of those unfold. And here, so, you know, however you may categorize and describe her and her actions, depending on what your own aperture is and how much light you're letting in of the information, of totality of information, not just linear information. That's not what we're talking about. It's all of it, every spectrum of it. But what a magnificent thing to design for yourself, to, and I'll go with some people's difference, you know, so to be asleep, to not get the whole ramifications of what you're doing, whether you like or don't like Trump, of completely thwarting freedom, completely thwarting someone else's own sovereignty to choose for themselves, you know, because you're somehow on the stream and Google's going to do this, right? So that's one part of it. To be dark and the evil sort, you know, if you're categorizing it dark that way. So in all of those roles, all at one moment, she hit the buttons to turn on, you know, a whole bunch of Lumieres for all, and look at the brilliant stroke of insight she's given herself, again, whether she's choosing to look at it or not, and all of the others as a catalyst. And again, I'll repeat, this has nothing to do with your affiliation as far as, you know, what president you like or don't like. It has to do with being able to have consciousness expand and expand and expand so that you can see all that it encompasses. So as someone, you know, because you were talking about everybody choosing their own configuration, how they're doing it. Well, that's just one of multitudes of examples. And if you look at what's playing out right now just with her in that moment from that informational aperture base, it takes on a whole new light, doesn't it? I mean, it really looks and shifts and changes what is coming to shape and form in the light that's been shined on that dark. And that's happening over and over and over again in every moment for every being as they look inside and every being, as they co-create and work with others in the different collectives, and as you come into coherence with other groups and focuses and thoughts and spheres, and in the collective, because every candle strength, every lumiere that each one of us, no matter how perceived tiny or brilliant it is, right, as far as the light information that it's reflecting, is integral, and it shifts everything. It's adding to that widened aperture. It's adding to that totality of consciousness that has again been raised. So a simple way to describe it is that each moment, a totally new, never before seen, reached, or experienced expansive level of consciousness has been achieved.
Yeah, and it's there. It's not in a vacuum. So just because, so and so down the street hasn't heard about this thing over here, doesn't mean that it's not going to affect their consciousness.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we're all one and singular.
Yeah, funny how that all works out, isn't it? I mean, like I said, it's for me just that being all one and yet singular. I've heard that saying a lot in my life. Okay, it's not like that's only. I just heard it 2 years ago when I started hanging out with Lisa. No, I'd heard that a lot, and I guess either you just don't pay attention to it or whatever. I don't know if it has to do with, well, again, I think because it's not all of this is not happening in a vacuum. That's part of it too. I don't know, but it just seems like it does feel exponential over just even the last couple of days
since the solstice.
Yeah, and I think that's why I shared with you. It has been going. For me personally, I shared with you that my body feels very heavy, and I don't know if that's because there's more me in here now or something, but or if it's just that things have ramped up so fast. There's a lot of but there's been a lot of epiphanies and clarity on other things. So it's like
but
things
you're
I
catching
thought,
up with you.
Yeah, okay. And slamming in, that could be it too. Like now it's in there. I don't know. It's just it feels like there's a lot of
well, if you're in water, just this example comes to mind. So if you're in water and you're not used to being in water, swimming and stuff, and you move your arms, the drag on your body and your ability to swim and move through and navigate and have the totality of who you are go through that. Because the effort taken to have the water displacement as you move through it is proportional to the amount of forward momentum, let's say, is very small. Yet you get more fluid, more comfortable, and all of your bodies now can be immersed in this, and it gets easier and easier and easier. So it's the same thing. So if you think of the energies that you're swimming in, right, there's a tremendous amount of drag in your water displacement of the energy frequencies now, because you haven't caught up to, your body has not caught up to the huge leap that the internal energetic part of you has just made.
Well, you must have read that in my field, because I have been feeling very much today. You know how when you're in a body of water for a good long while, and then you come out and you feel like you're still in that body of water. That's how my energy field has been feeling a lot today specifically. So that's interesting that you actually picked up on it in that specific manner. And see, that for me is another really good example of those tools that we have that are bubbling that we may not even realize we have. You are aware that you have that tool. Some folks like myself with my tarot and things that I've been developing up over in here, things that I think I may have always had, but didn't realize or cultivate. Allow is another good word too. And so as there's movement from dark to light within me, and I suspect for us all, those tools will, well, you won't be surprised. Let's just say, oh, that's what that is. Okay, now I get it. Because that's where the way some of what's been taking place for me personally has, like feeling something was one way when in fact it's, yes, it is that way, but it's also so much more than that.
Yes. Well, and it brings up a very, something I want to highlight here is that the brush off is that we do for ourselves constantly is a very big tool in keeping the dark heaped on us by choice, because we're not choosing to notice. We're not only choosing not to encounter it and be subject to these different things that come up because they're right there in our field, but we're, again, sweeping something over it. We're brushing it off. We're discounting it. We're pushing it away. We're not taking the time to notice it and feel into it. And I would love to, I'm not sure how to do it, with the three of us or a group of other people, but I would love to have like a little gathering, because class isn't the right, I don't think it's the right way, but where we can actually play in that moment, and just in having a little bit of conversation in a few different ways, we could elicit a lot of people to do the brush off thing, and then it can be captured and say, okay, well, right there, this happened. I mean, we do that a lot with you, but right here, and you brushed it off, and what was that? Freeze it. What was that feeling? What was that sense? What was the thing that came up? Because that may be helpful for each individual being that it was going with, but also those who watch it, because then they can go, oh yeah, I just did that. Now yours that you just did could be similar or completely different, but what it does is it, again, turns you, no one's doing this, I'm not doing anything, she isn't doing it, it's each individual person is turning another candle strength on, moving from dark to light.
Well, yes, I feel for myself anyway, and I'm certain I would I would be, well, no, I am certain that it is for a lot of others as well. A lot of things that I have in the past brushed off, or I don't want to look at that right now. Most of the time, it has to do with something painful. And there's been, at least for me, a large amount of programming into we don't do pain at all. What? So never. Don't be in pain. Got to do something to. But it's a way of suppressing it, not a way of finding out what it is, and handling it, dealing with it, and getting to the root of it, if you will. That's not, at least not my. It was not my MO, and most folks generally same. I don't want to feel that pain, so we'll just sweep that over here to the side and either deal with it later or pretend it doesn't exist or whatever and what all. And I think that's too something that is coming dark to light. There's it's a multi-layered thing. There's programming involved that we did ourselves, that we allowed, that we continue to do because nobody likes to be in pain. So, right, there's all sorts of levels to that.
And the attachment to pain too. So by that, what I mean is I brushed something off that was an inkling or an inclination or a little tapping on me of, hey, there's a superpower wanting to, bubbling out to the surface. And you brush it off because, no, I'm small and I couldn't possibly. And that, is in the same frequency as pain because it's fear.
Yes.
Yes.
Well,
and what I'm saying is this is what's happening now. And so we choose, yes, we have all our own paths that we've marked out. So part of acknowledging that we all are where we are and it's unique to us and it's spectacular is that if there is pain and we're not choosing to notice because we keep brushing up, that was our mechanism that we, nobody else, we set up to show us awake. And we can keep choosing how long we want to brush it off or not. Because contrary to the company line, it doesn't take, years of therapy or this or that, the other thing. You do it in an instant because you can change, because it all comes from you. But anyways, I just wanted to put that in because I know that there are so many wondrous things happening to every being out there, and a lot of them aren't noticing it. They're not even noticing that they're going like this. When that superpower bubbles to the surface and goes, hey, we can do this.
Well, that for me is part of that programming too. That being small programming. So, and the fear programming too, because there are things, as some of those bubbling superpowers start bubbling up, there's little pieces that are going to say, oh yeah, okay, yeah, sure, right, within self, that fear that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But that's dark too. I mean, that's part of the dark too.
Sure.
And by being willing to look at it, that's part of bringing the light to it, for me anyway.
Yeah.
By being willing to look at, okay, well, what about that scares me? What is that about? I mean,
and I talk about that a lot, so it fits in right here with the dark to light, because when you allow yourself and stop resisting all that you are, which is beautiful brilliance, there's that whole Lumiere thing again. And, you go from dark to light in an instant, in the blink of an eye. You may choose not to stay there for a bit, but it's there. It's available to each being. And so again, I got told that I'm not quite saying it right. So this is what is going on. This is what the flow is. This is the speed and the trajectory. And right this moment it's slow compared to what it be in the next moment, and so on and so forth. But this is what's happening. And so use linear, whereas we won't sink, but we've got to learn to swim in this because we created this to swim in.
I'm sorry. As soon as you said that, I'm like, glug, glug. Because I, like I said, it's been very like this, and I said, I think I was saying, some days I'm surfing, some moments I'm surfing, some moments I'm holding on to the surfboard going,
Right.
and it's all okay. It's all exactly what it's meant to be, I think. For me anyway, for right now. So
in the comments, I'd love people, in all the different places that there are comments that this will show up. What is your thought of playing with dark to light, your journey with dark to light, and are you interested in illuminating for yourself the really exciting fun part, which is all of those new tools, no powers that are coming, that are already here, and would you like to illuminate them for yourself?
well, I'm going to be your first comment, and I'm going to say that I'm just going to say it here instead of in the comment. Because, well, what came in for me when you said that is that for in some cases, okay, like in my case, looking at some things that have been termed dark, right, have been very illuminating as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just want to say that sometimes a thing that could be, one might consider a very dark thing, could actually be a superpower bubbling under the surface.
Yes.
And so just, don't be so quick to beat yourself up about much of anything, really, because
that's moving dark to light. There is no judgment. In light, in that expansion, in the light body coming online, however you want to describe, in the candle strength being up, the Lumiere's coming up, or all those metaphors and actual reality things that come forward, you'll see that there is not. And once all those things that are of the dark, those judgment and all those lift and are removed and are revealed, you now have this amazing unlimited cornucopia of components that you are. You have some you have more of, some you have less of, some only because you have some that you have more of an affinity to, or you want to play those colors in your color box.
Yep. Wow, this has been a good conversation, BZ. I've enjoyed this. Thanks for thinking of me this evening. I appreciate that. And I'd love to see the comments too. So I'll have to go to your channel and my channel and the IEV So I would love it if folks would comment about this. Or anything, honestly. It's cool. So we'll have ways to get in touch with BZ in the show more section of this video, and like and subscribe both on my channel and on BZ's channel. Yes. And hit the notification bell if you want to be notified when we upload videos. Thank you, BZ.
Good night, Sheila.
Bye.
Bye.